Welcome into Beyond the Press Box. I'm your host, Yash Padi. Alongside me are my analyst and co host, Cody Emerson and Will Hatzel today. Get ready to hear some great discussions and debates on the biggest storylines in sports. We cover topics ranging from the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, college football, and college basketball. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the roundtable discussion between four friends who are passionate sports fans. Before we begin the show, we do want to let you know that through our partnership with the Unhinged Sports Network, we've partnered with Fubo TV. What is Fubo TV, you may ask? Fubo TV brings you 100 plus channels, including ESPN, Fox, NBC, CBS, and many more, without the hassle of a cable contract. Don't believe me? Click the link in our social media bios and start your 7-day free trial today. The NBA playoffs, the first round is well underway, fellas. And just as of this recording, I know Brooklyn has a big lead on Boston right now. They're about to go up 2-1 or 3-1 in this series, first round series. I know you have Dallas and LA as of this recording that are still going to play the Clippers. And Luka Doncic and the Mavericks could potentially go up 3-1 in the series. I know the Hawks are now up 3-1 in the series against the Knicks in this first round series. So I just wanted to get your overall thoughts on this. I know last week we touched on kind of recapping the play-in tournament. This week I just want to touch on your thoughts on this first round so far. The Bucks, also I forgot the Bucks on Saturday swept the Heat, so they're on to that second round of the NBA playoffs. So just wanted to get your overall thoughts on how this first round has played out in the NBA playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting, I think, to watch. So probably the series that's caught me the two series that have caught me the most off guard so far. I'd probably say the Clippers and Dallas series and the Hawks being up 3-1. Um, I know we're going to talk about who's impressed us the most later in this segment, so I'll use this opening segment to kind of talk about some guys who haven't lived up to expectations. Julius Randle, I'm looking at you. You are the most improved player in all of NBA, averaging, I think he was 25, 26 points this year per game. The dude is averaging just right around 17. That's not going to get it done in the playoffs. You have got to just play better. And now, is this on Tom Thibodeau? I mean, because we all know, Will, I'll let you kind of maybe expand on this a little bit about how hard he rides his starters during the regular season and how heavy minutes they play all the time. So is that catching up with Julius Randle? It may. Who knows? But nonetheless, the Knicks find themselves on the brink of elimination as they are down 3-1. Talking about another guy who really, and just as a team, really, who didn't show much fight, the Miami Heat. And look, I get it's Giannis, I get it's the Bucks, but can we stop with praising the living hell out of Jimmy Butler? I mean, for the love of God, I mean, this dude in the series was averaged right around, I think, 14 and a half points per game. I mean, he had 12 in the series in the fourth game where they got swept. I mean, congrats, you get 10 boards. Congrats, you get 10 assists. But where is the Jimmy Butler that we saw last year single-handedly take over games? I mean, he had 19 in game 3, 17 in game 1, but 10 in game 2. Their Miami Heat's leading scorer in that series is Bam, who averaged right around 15 and a half. Miami was just no match for Milwaukee. Milwaukee's on a mission, and really going to be looking forward to it. It's looking like we're going to get Milwaukee versus Brooklyn in round 2, and that is going to be the series that I'm going to be paying attention to. I know we're kind of overlooking things, but Boston, there's technically still alive, but it's looking more and more likely that we're going to get Brooklyn versus Milwaukee there. So in terms of the other series, Phoenix LA, right where I thought it would be. I predicted Phoenix to win, but I thought this would be a hard 6-7 game series. And Anthony Davis, on in their game on Sunday, or not tore, had his he pulled his groin or a strain, or I believe it was an injury there. So who knows? I think he was listed as day to day, but injuries continue to plague Anthony Davis. I mean, the dude could just seeming as a walking injury machine, or however you want to phrase it. And Phoenix's Chris Paul has kind of battled through that shoulder injury that he suffered, I think, in game 1. So he looks to be back. And Phoenix didn't even really have their best performance today. Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre, they all played it pretty solid, but no one really went above and beyond. And talking about going above and beyond, we haven't, and hopefully knock on wood here, because hopefully I don't wake the sleeping giant that is LeBron James, but we haven't seen a LeBron dominant type game yet either. I mean, he's been in the 20 points range. I mean, he's doing typical LeBron stuff, getting his teammates and whatnot involved, and that's nice, but we haven't really seen him take over a game yet. And granted, they're still tied at 2, so maybe he doesn't really need to so far, but I'm kind of waiting on that dominant LeBron type game where he gives you 30, 40 point, like a 30, 40 point triple double. We haven't really seen that. So kind of hoping that doesn't happen, because like I said, I picked Phoenix and I want LeBron to lose in the first round. Damn it. I want it to happen. I think, I know we talked about Chris Paul wanting to win a championship. So in order for that to happen, he's going to have to knock his buddy out in LeBron James. The last one I'll touch on is Denver and Portland. This series is shaping up to go 7. Dame and Jokic, it's been a battle of superstars, both averaging over 30. Jokic is carrying the weight of the Nuggets right now. I mean, without Jamal Murray, Michael Porter Jr. is kind of stepping up a little bit, but Jokic has basically been doing it all. And Dame is being Dame come playoff time. He's not going to come out of a game when it's not necessary. He's just going to battle 24/7. And that's what I love about Dame. I've said it many times on this show, he is my favorite non-pacer in the NBA. I just love to watch him go to work, because as soon as he crosses half court, he can shoot it. And it's just ridiculous to see some of the stuff he's done. Game 5 will be tomorrow night. And the winner of that will have a death grip on the series with just needing one more game. But I mean, for the most part, these playoffs have been pretty interesting. We haven't seen one. I mean, Milwaukee, Miami has been kind of the dominant series. Atlanta, and the Knicks, yeah. But those, for the most part, really have been only the 2. I get Philly, Washington, but sorry, Washington, you weren't going to take a game. You fought valiantly in game 1, and now Philly is showing why they're the way better team. So some series out east aren't being as much competitive, but you got 2 series tied out west, and two others being 2-1. So the West, like we probably thought, is being just a very, very competitive, and looking forward to some great basketball. Philly's probably going to take care of Washington in 4. Looking like Atlanta will probably take care of Knicks in 5. And then Brooklyn will take care of Boston in 5 too. So it's not competitive that much out east, I think, but that'll change come round 2. And then, but out west, we're getting great games from the get-go, and that's all we can ask for come the postseason.
It's been a great first round. There's just I feel like every series has had a an interesting storyline, whether it's players having coming out parties, whether it's fans versus players, cities versus players. Some nice little rivalries are growing, which I mean could you know be the start of something big, which would be great. After last year, we got to see, the Michael Jordan documentary, The Last Dance. You see, we heard about the Bulls and the Pistons rivalry, and there were a lot of other rivalries in the '80s and '90s in basketball, even the early 2000s. I feel like we haven't had a lot of actual rivalries with different basketball teams and cities of late, or at least in this era or generation of the NBA. So I'm kind of hoping we see that. Like, I'd love to see New York and Atlanta become something, where I mean, keep it a little clean, keep it a little classy. I know there's, instances of fans doing some dumb stuff, but I just love the competitive basketball we're seeing, and I love the fact that it's not just all coming from LeBron James. I know, of course, Brooklyn's big three is a little frustrating to watch and deal with because it's like, look, I mean, I'd love to see James Harden win a title. I'd love to see Kevin Durant continue to succeed. I mean, he used to be my favorite player, but it's just, again, it's back to that big three mentality. I'm glad to see some of these teams, especially some of these series. I mean, there is no big three in the Utah Memphis series. There is no big three in the Denver Portland series. It's really cool to see some of these teams go back, or some of these matchups go back to the classic. When we talk about unwritten rules and the old ways of sports that we've talked about quite a bit on the last couple of episodes here. It's great to see kind of some old style basketball being played where it's not just all the super teams. Every series has been fun to watch except that Milwaukee Miami series. Look, I figured Miami was going to lose, but to go down with like not even pulling a punch, Jimmy Butler got outscored by some random name guy, and I forgot his name, but
Bryn
technically,
Forbes, I think, was his name.
I think he outscored him in the series like 60 to 48 points or something like that. I mean, Jimmy Butler was not good at all. I mean, I figured he would have been the one lone shining star, but he kind of pulled what I would call a Russell Westbrook of the past of Westbrook when he was with the Thunder, where it's just every time he tried to take over a game, he's heaving up shots, he's trying to do all these things, he's missing. And that's kind of what Jimmy Butler did in this series. Now, I think Miami's just kind of a broken team. They had this confidence and the swagger going into the bubble. I guess they took advantage of a unique opportunity last summer, but I think we have learned, and we've already known this for a while, but this quick ousting and sweep in the playoffs was the final, part of icing on the cake to tell us that no, this Miami team's broken. They have a lot of issues. They were a little bit overhyped. Yes, they were in the finals last year, but maybe it truly was because they just took advantage of a unique situation that we had going on last summer in the bubble. Milwaukee, look, I know it maybe doesn't seem as impressive because this was a messed up Miami team, but there's a lot of pressure riding on Milwaukee this year. If they don't win it this year, or they don't make it to the finals at least this year, you got to wonder what's going to be the criticism or what's going to happen in Milwaukee. I mean, this team, they redesigned virtually the whole team around Giannis last, off season. So it's impressive for them, off to a really good start. And I mean, look, they're going to have to be because the odds are they're playing Brooklyn, the Celtics. Look, Jason Tatum, I like I've been telling you guys, I've been hyping him up. He, is a baller. We saw him drop 50, I believe it was game 3. So the game before now. And as I'm looking at my phone, the Nets just went up 3-1 in the series. So simply Boston's kind of like Miami in terms of they just have been struggling all year and nobody knows who the blame is. It the players? Is it the coach? Is it this? Is it that? Yeah, Jaylen Brown injury was huge, but look, you have 3 of the league's top premier scorers. You could have the best defense in all of basketball, and you're still not going to stop these guys. You could have the 1990s version of defense, the way the dirty Pistons used to play, where you could punch and kick and push over guys. It could be old school basketball. I don't know if you're stopping these 3 guys. Everybody thought maybe the chemistry was going to be off because so 2 of them played, 1 of them played. Once in a while, all 3 of them played because of the injuries. Maybe we did overhype that. If you actually look up the stats, so we discovered that I think a couple of episodes ago. when we were previewing, what the playoffs were going to look like, that they actually played with each other more than everybody liked to hype up and worry about and talk about in the media. So maybe Brooklyn's going to be just fine. We'll see what happens with this Milwaukee series coming up. I know I'm already skipping ahead, but the odds are Boston's out of this. That it's gonna be tough sledding for the Bucks because yes, they have Giannis, yes, they have some unique pieces that could provide different roles of offense and defense. But again, can you play good enough defense to be able to stop Harden and Durant and Irving? I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know if there's any team in the East that could stop all these guys when they're healthy and whatnot like this. Atlanta being up 3-1 against the Knicks, that kind of reminds me of these other two series. What you're seeing so far in the East is the teams that have the most firepower are winning. I was a little bit worried about Atlanta, thinking that they would maybe stumble out the gate. Trey Young, some of his first tastes of playoff of experience, and this team has had some issues. We know Nate McMillan's had a spotty record when he was coaching the Pacers. But this is a Knicks team that, okay, if you're really expecting Julius Randle and Derrick Rose to really step up and like score 30 points a night, you're gravely mistaken. That's not going to happen. And there's only there's a handful of clutch shooters in the league right now. And I'm not saying necessarily you have to be a 3-point shooter, but there's only a handful of guys you really could trust to be clutch in any situation. Guys like Steph Curry, LeBron James, I would argue Jason Tatum could be in that category sometimes, and Trey Young. Trey Young is just, I love the menace mentality he has going on right now. That specifically, that series alone, I think is where we might see a great rivalry, continue to blossom as that series goes on. The Derrick Rose story is great. I shed a few tears once in a while watching him play with Taj Gibson, and of course, Tom Thibodeau coaching the Knicks. Look, the Knicks have a great future. Okay, they got a bright future if they could keep building off of what they have. But Julius Randle, this was his first opportunity to really shine in the playoffs in the biggest games that matter, and we haven't really seen it so far. Again, maybe that's just because that's the kind of the player he is. Nothing against him, but he's just never been a cold-blooded closer. He's never been a guy that is up there in the ranks of some of the top players, even though he had a good year. Yeah, Washington, hey, they get a participation trophy. They made it to the playoffs, which they had I think a 15% chance or less than a 10% chance, something like that. They had super low odds of making it. They did. Now they probably went from wondering, do we trade, Westbrook and or Beal and hit the reset button completely? Now they have a different thing to think about, and that's, do we kind of build around these guys, because Beal showed up as usual, which he does, and Russell Westbrook, I think, continues to prove to people that he still has it. Quickly in the West, I'll be honest, guys, I haven't followed much of the Portland Denver series. I know it's neck and neck, 2 games apiece. I feel like that's the classic matchup of just a bunch of guys. I know Portland's got the superstars playing, Denver's got Jokic. I know they're missing Murray. That series, for whatever reason, just doesn't interest me as much as the other ones, but I'm glad to see it's neck and neck. I feel like whoever wins that, I'll be happy either way, because I'm all for some of these teams you haven't seen win or be dominant. I'm surprised Dallas is playing so well against the Clippers. I thought Luka Doncic was going to be screwed, having to do everything himself, but the team has come around him. He's played well and has played up to the level of competition. The Clippers, I don't know what's going on. If they can't do it this year, I don't really know if that team they have right there right now is ever going to do it. Dallas is a good team. You can't sleep on them, but I don't think Dallas is really ready yet to go far and deep into the playoffs. They're not equipped yet with the right players and the right personnel around Doncic. And I know Porzingis has stepped up there too. I just kind of expected this to be an experience year for Dallas, and it turns out they may be able to pull off an upset here. And like I said, the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard has nothing to really prove anymore after what he did in Toronto. It's Paul George that has to prove himself and prove it to everybody else. And it's just not happening. The Utah-Memphis series, that's probably my favorite series in the West right now. Utah up 2-1 in the series. Look, I think, Conley being able to rejuvenate his career and what he's doing with Spida, is awesome. I think Memphis and the coming out party of Ja Morant is awesome. I think that, Ja Morant, this is his moment, whether they win this series or not, is to prove that he's the real deal. And considering that they're putting up a good fight, he's performing, making highlight plays and things like that. I think Ja Morant showing he's a real one. And he's somebody that, even if they don't go far or advance in the playoffs this year, just picking up some of that experience is key. I want to say my final thoughts for last year with this Phoenix Lakers series, because this is the one that's probably the most intriguing out of all the matches here in the East or West, because it's tough to go against the King. It's tough to go against LeBron and AD because they're healthy, and I say healthy in quotations, like they're healthy enough to play. But we saw AD leave the game today. I think he's day to day. LeBron, is he 100%? He claimed before the regular season ended that he's not 100%, or he's probably never going to be 100% again in his career regarding his ankle. That's a little bit scary. I mean, I know he's a boss still, and he's still the arguably the goat of this current generation of NBA players, in the league right now. But if he's not 100%, is that why he's trying to cry to the refs? I mean, even today, I know Jay Crowder kind of fouled him hard, might have grabbed his neck or tried to climb on top of him or something. And I can understand LeBron being pissed about that one, but I feel like this is the first time in a while we've seen LeBron cry to the refs as much as he has. And I'm wondering if he's a little bit nervous because he knows his role players this year haven't always stepped up or been there consistently. He knows AD is banged up and continues to be banged up. He's just a player that's never 100% healthy. And LeBron himself knows about himself personally that, hey, my ankle's maybe not 100% right. Maybe there's something else bothering him that we don't know. And Phoenix proved earlier today that they're not to be messed with. Devin Booker showing up. Chris Paul is showing with veteran leadership. He's leading by example with the plays he's making. And I love the feistiness out of him. He's not afraid to back down to LeBron or AD or LA in general. He is determined to help Phoenix overcome this obstacle, get to the next round. Unfortunately, I still think LA wins it, but if these injury issues continue with AD, and if LeBron is truly, and I'm going to say it, I'm going to be the conspiracy theorist here for a moment and say that LeBron isn't 100%, and this is why we're seeing him cry to the refs and flop and go back to his old days when he was like with the Miami Heat and even Cleveland. I think LA might be in trouble because they just don't have what they had last year. They're injured. They don't have that mojo right now, and Phoenix seems to have it. So I'm still going with LA, but if the King and if AD aren't healthy and not even close to 100%, very concerning, and maybe Phoenix has a chance here. So I would say Phoenix and LA, that's the series that's most intriguing to keep watching as we go forward.
Like I've said to you guys last week, and when we were previewing the playoffs the week before, I'm a Suns fan. I'm with Cody on this one. I just want to see LeBron get knocked out because, Will, you mentioned it last week too. With I'll quote you, LaFlop is the
Yes.
term that you used, and the amount of flopping and the amount of calls he's getting from the refs there. And I mean, I want to see, like I said, I want to see Chris Paul win a ring. I mean, he's never played in the finals in his career. I want to see him play well. Devin Booker's been playing well in this series. Chris Paul was actually questionable before this today's game, Sunday's game as of this recording, and he went out and he said, "Injury's not going to stop me. He came out and he played phenomenally for the Phoenix Suns there. But no, it is an interesting first. It has been an interesting first round so far of these playoffs. You mentioned there Brooklyn up 3-1. Don't count Boston out just yet. You know what my Cavs did in the finals. They came back from a 3-1 deficit, but I don't know.
Because they had LeBron James.
That's true.
They had a man named LeBron James.
That's true.
No offense to Tatum.
Yeah.
He ain't LeBron.
Miracles could happen. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too optimistic, too positive.
I bet that hell freezes over before Boston comes back and wins that.
Oh yeah. No, but no, it's interesting. Interesting there. I know you brought up the rivalry between Atlanta and New York there, and again, it's a very, very intriguing first round so far. Like Cody had mentioned, you have the separation of the super teams there versus like a Denver Portland series or a Utah Memphis series where you don't really have a a big three or you don't really have a super team per se. But those I like to I've liked to see those grind out games that they've had. Memphis putting up some good numbers, and Ja Morant putting up some good numbers. Will, like you said, he's this is kind of his moment there within itself. So, but I know, Cody, you mentioned that Julius Randle is somebody who has kind of performed below the expectations in the playoffs in terms of how he played in the regular season, being the most improved player at all. But what player in this throughout these playoffs so far has kind of stood out to you, impressed you the most?
I got to ride with my day one here, and that's Joel Embiid. Now, we talk about guys that need to prove it and whatnot. Yeah, Joel has been a dominant player in the league now for a while. He's the one guy that has always seemed to be consistent and pan out for the 76ers and, their tanking plan and everything. After all these years, he's the one guy has stood out and has been the best thing to come from it. However, he had an MVP year. The one thing that always has seemed to have bothered him and have held him back happened again to him this year, and that was an injury. Came back, has played well, almost didn't think he was hurt, didn't even know it. In the playoffs here, and I know it's against Washington, but I mean, he put his foot down on the gas pedal in game one at the beginning and didn't give up. It went into all three games so far. And look, I know it's Washington. It's probably going to be a sweep, but that's what you need to do. You need to take advantage of going against an easier opponent, work out the kinks, be dominant, be competitive, and get that confidence because, when they go ahead and play, more than likely it's going to be Atlanta in the second round. That's going to be a tough series. And Joel Embiid, again, one thing I like, we talk about him this year with being great offensively, defensively with the rebounds and whatnot. I've never seen him this efficient in this first series here against Washington. I mean, 30 points in game one, 22 in game two, 36 points in game three. He shot, and he's getting better every single game. He shot 56% from the field in game one, 66% from the field in game two, and 77% in game three. Also, he's making 3-point shots. He went 3 for 4 in the last two games. So he's basically a 75% 3-point shooter right now for a big man. And we see some of his defensive numbers like blocks and rebounds go down a bit. And I mean, he's not a facilitator, so he doesn't have a ton of assists, but I'm glad to see that he's just taking his team, taking the bull by the horns and just leading the charge. And he's not afraid to worry about, maybe what he's known for, which is, in my opinion, it's a little bit of everything. But look, I mean, the efficiency offensively has been great. And, it's interesting because he only played 30 or more minutes in game one, where he played 30 minutes on the dot. He played 26 in game two, 28 in game three. Now, granted, I know they've won by big margins, so they probably took him out to, save him and not do a Tom Thibodeau thing and, have a Derrick Rose scenario happen, which, I still remember 10 plus years later. I have to give it to Embiid because it's not just big numbers, it's just efficiency when you look at the statistics and the percentages. And for the guy to transition from being a good offensive player and yes, doing some blocks and rebounds, being a force in the paint defensively too. I'm excited to see him be able to take that next level, take that next step, and just score the points, make the baskets, get the 3-point shots going, even for a big man. I mean, I know I don't recall him ever being a 3-point shooter. He's not like an AD type of guy. Maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but also great efficiency at the free throw line too for when he's made it. So I got to ride with my day one guy. And it just goes to prove a point that We're not surprised James Harden and Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant are scoring all these points, and we're not surprised that Brooklyn's playing so well. I don't think many people are surprised Julius Randle's not playing that well because he's a guy that never really took that next step, and he's failed so far with this opportunity. Jimmy Butler, we've seen him show it at times. This was his opportunity to prove that last summer wasn't a fluke, and he got outscored by a random guy that I still don't remember his name, even though Cody just told me 5 minutes ago. So Joel Embiid is one of those players that finally answered the call to step up for his team, because again, let's face it, there's not a whole lot of star power on Philly. A lot of it is generates from Embiid, and his star power is glowing the brightest we've ever seen it this whole season, and especially right here in the playoffs. He's living it in the moment, and I'm going to keep rooting for him, honestly.
I have two guys, and one of them's kind of obvious. But I mean, you have to give him credit, and he's the reason why his team's up 2-1. It's freaking Luka Doncic. Guys, this kid is 22 years old. Keep that in mind. I am 24 years old. This kid is, and literally I can say kid, is 2 years younger than me and is putting up 38, 8.5, and 9 in the 3 games so far. What? It's scary. It scares me to say this. He hasn't hit his prime yet. He's still slowly figuring out things, but in the bulk of his career where he's going to be at his peak, he hasn't hit that yet. We're still seeing young Luka Doncic. And that could be a whole nother topic of we're watching younger and younger players play better and better earlier on in their careers. That could be a topic for another day. But I mean, it's what Luka is doing is just damn scary. I mean, he is going to wreck this league for the next 10 to 15 years. I was really impressed with what I saw him do last year. And guys, it's gotten to the point where, he's just chucking up one-legged threes in a playoff game just to have fun, and he's making them. He is a wizard with the basketball at 22 years old. And Kristaps has played. Will, you talked about it. Some of his role players, Tim Hardaway Jr., I think Dorian Finney-Smith, Kristaps, they're playing pretty well. Why they're playing well? All the attention is being drawn to Luka, and he's dishing it out to his guys for making shots. So what I'm seeing from Luka Doncic, it's just damn scary. Like I said, he's only going to get better. And the scary part is he's shooting 52% from the field while doing this. While also a steal and a block per game. He literally does it all. And I don't think if you want to say there's a weakness in his game, could he get better on the defensive end? Probably. I think that will come. However, I mean, like we just said, the kid's only 22 years old. So Luka Doncic, it's probably the obvious answer, but I got to go with it. And then another guy I'm going to give love to who is only 21 years old. Yeah, I'm sticking with the theme of young guns, is Ja Morant. He had 47 points, which was, I believe, a Grizzlies franchise record for playoff points. He's had 28 in game 3, 26 in game 1. In the game he had 47 points, 57% from the field. He is being so efficient with it. Now, you could argue, he's a point guard. He needs 5.5 assists. Would you like to see that number improve? Maybe. But he is willing his team against the number 1 seeded team, the number 1 defensive team in the NBA, and the Utah Jazz. Keep that in mind. And he is having his way. He literally lays his body out on the line every single play. And I did not expect Memphis to be this competitive with Utah, and Ja Morant's the main reason why. So Luka and Ja, the two young, and I'm just gonna stick with it, kids are balling out. And it's amazing to think, like I said, I'm 24 years old, and then here's a kid 22 and 21, excelling in the NBA playoffs. Kind of makes me wonder what the heck I'm doing with my life, but you know what? More power to him.
We didn't play enough at the gym, I guess, back
Yeah,
in
I guess we
those
didn't hit the
days,
gym
huh?
enough. That's
Even though we played every week.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we take solace in knowing we were good. We were good at rec ball. So I'll take solace in knowing that. But yeah, you had mine there in Luka Doncic, Cody. But I'll say another one here. Devin Booker from the Phoenix Suns also has had a impressive start to his first playoff series and his first taste of the NBA playoffs. And so really has, really hasn't shown any kind of nerves, has kind of, made the transition it's seamless. At least it seemed seamless from when I've been watching him going into the playoff series against the Lakers. I mean, he's averaging 28 points per game. He's shooting 93% from the free throw line in this playoff series. So, um, just phenomenal basketball from Devin Booker himself. And and like I said, I said in the segment before is the question before is I'm a Suns fan here in this first round series, and want to see Devin Booker and Chris Paul make help the Suns make a deep run. And they're tied like I said, tied at 2 games apiece now. And Will, you mentioned it. We'll have to see how depends on what happens with AD, LeBron not being 100%, or claiming he's not 100%. He'll never be 100%. How that'll play, how that'll factor into this progression of the series and the playoffs. So again, it's interesting. A lot of good names. A lot of like I said, this first round has been very, very intriguing with matchups and a very impressive play. I know a lot of my friends from Memphis. They were the game, the Jazz Grizzlies game on Saturday. Where Donovan Mitchell, he just had, I think, 10 out of 14 of the Jazz's last points Donovan Mitchell had in the last like 2 minutes to beat the Grizzlies there. So I know they were kind of on the edge of their seat watching that game. So there's been some games and some players like Mitchell as well who have stepped up for their teams in this first round of the playoffs that have been very, very impressive. But we talked about the playoff. We're talking about the playoffs here, the first round of the playoffs. But it's never too early to talk about the NBA draft and the upcoming draft, the 2021 NBA draft. And you talk about. I saw earlier today that Cade Cunningham, CBS Sports put out kind of a mock draft, and they were talking about Cade Cunningham is whatever happens, he'll potentially be the projected first overall pick, excuse me. But when you look at this mock draft that CBS put out, what do you make of this mock draft itself, and who do you see kind of filling a need for your team, Cody with your Pacers and Will with your Bulls? Who would you like to see your team draft in this first round to kind of fill a need for your team?
Definitely not Franz Wagner, who they have projected. I don't think the Pacers really need wings. I think you have Justin Holiday, Doug McDermott, TJ Warren, guys like that. I don't think wing is a specific need. And plus, I was watching, with me being an Ohio State fan, I watched a lot of Michigan basketball. Guys, I just wasn't impressed with Wagner. I just wasn't. I don't think if he's a late if he's going in the first round, I don't see it going to the late part of the first round. Guy I would like is actually looking through here. Two guys actually. Actually, there's a handful of them. If the Pacers were to draft a wing, I will say this: I would rather take Corey Kispert from Gonzaga, dude who can shoot, can defend, can basically do everything. He shot 44% from three, averaged almost 19 points a game for Gonzaga, 5 boards, and is a really good defender too. So if we were to take a wing, I'd probably want Corey Kispert a little bit. But I think the Pacers need probably a backup 2 shooting guard, because I love Jeremy Lamb. I really do. But this dude, for the love of God, cannot stay healthy. And granted, a lot of the Pacers team cannot stay healthy. But if I'm looking at a guy who can, provide some scoring off the bench, I'm looking at a guy like Cameron Thomas from LSU, who averaged 23 points per game, led the SEC. Granted, his efficiency wasn't that great, but that's because he was taking a bulk of the shots, because LSU didn't have a ton else around him. He's projected as a 14th overall prospect, so he's a guard who 6'4", I think is great for like a 2. So I would like that, really. If the Pacers just need another, I think, scoring guard who can come off the bench. I mean, you look at a guy probably like James Bouknight from UConn too. Trying to just, as I'm scrolling through here, Trey Mann from Florida is another guy. But there's just, I think the Pacers need to go athletic guard here. Edmund Sumner, yeah, the Pacers, I like everything about this team, so I don't think they need to improve a ton, but getting another guy like a shooting guard or a small forward who can do a little bit of everything, I'm not going to complain about, because you obviously have to take a pick. But main thing, I just want to see, it's hard to evaluate a team when you don't know exactly how the team performs when everyone is healthy, and who can be relied upon in what situations and whatnot. That is the biggest thing plaguing the Pacers right now, is they can't fairly evaluate this team if, we're playing the third man in our depth chart at a starting position, or if TJ Warren misses an entire year. We can't evaluate how he would have performed with this team this year. Health, if the Pacers could draft like health packs or health safety, like whatever in the draft, I would tell you take that, because that's what the Pacers need right now. Just bandages to kind of bandage up this injury-plagued team right now. So that's the big thing. As I said, the Pacers, you have to take somebody. So I'd probably go with a shooting guard, small forward type guy, but it's really hard to evaluate what exactly you need when you haven't seen the full product yet. And that's the main issue with them right now.
And Will, your Bulls, they actually shipped away their first round pick for this year's draft when they shipped Otto Porter Jr. and Wendell Carter for Vucevic this year. But what do you make of this mock draft, in this first round mock draft that CBS has kind of put out? And who are you looking, when you're looking ahead to the Bulls draft, kind of in these later rounds, who are you looking to grab in this year's draft for Chicago? or who do you
Well,
think Chicago should grab?
it's very interesting, Yash, because actually, and I totally forgot about this, and up until, our podcast here, the Bulls technically have a 20.3% chance of keeping that 2021 first round pick because they've made it protected top 4 pick. So when the draft lottery happens, if the Bulls happen to land within those first 4 picks, they supposedly get to keep it. Um, and this is a lot of it's due to missing the playing tournament. So there is a chance, but the first off, the draft lottery's never been nice to the Bulls since Derrick Rose, because the Bulls, they always were cursed at picking at 7 and never really getting into like the top 3 or the top 4. I'll answer it this way: if by miraculous chances the Bulls have great luck in the lottery and they get in the top 4, I'm praying that it's the first or second pick of the draft where they have a good chance of getting a guy like Cade Cunningham or Jalen Suggs, because I think getting Vucevic and even acquiring Daniel Tice, who is a free agent, so we don't know if he's coming back. But if those two guys come back and they move on from Lauri Markkanen, it's okay. Those two guys are going to be, the guys in the front court leading the way, and maybe there's another acquisition or two in free agency. But I would love to see another young guy come in like a Cade Cunningham, ideally, because look, the guy averaged 20 points a game last year, was efficient from the 3-point line, shot 40%. He's got great size. He can create shots. He could do play. He's got playmaking abilities. I need somebody to play next to LaVine and mirror some of his abilities and his traits, because you guys heard me say this a million times, but what we saw from the Bulls last year, before and even after Vucevic, it's the ball's always in LaVine's hands. It's always LaVine having to make the shots and create the offense. Kobe White slowly coming into his own. I don't know if he's going to be starting point guard material. He still has a question mark on his resume. He is a serviceable player, but I'm almost thinking he might be better off being the 6th or 7th man on the bench, like your backup point guard to come in and have some playmaking ability, provide some speed and whatnot when your second unit goes out there. But Cade Cunningham is a guy that plays well. Again, does the things LaVine does, and that's create his own shots, and is a playmaker, can facilitate and pass it around. I mean, Cunningham averaged 6 rebounds a game this year. Jalen Suggs, the production's less, but 14 points a game. The guy could shoot threes. Again, he's a top shelf athlete who, again, I'm looking for a guy that can initiate the offense in multiple ways like LaVine. If LaVine's going to be the guy shooting, then maybe it's Suggs or Cunningham that's, facilitating the ball to him and everybody else. But also, these guys could hit big shots. These guys could create their own shots. If LaVine is getting double teamed or something, you could get the ball in their hands and they're confident with what they're doing. Now, again, it is kind of a long shot that they keep this pick. So I pretty much think that the odds are they're going to be able to address in free agency. Like maybe they find a way to pick up Lonzo Ball and he's their point guard to play next to LaVine. So if it's going to be a later round pick in the first round, if they happen to move up or whatever, or maybe it's a second round pick, we have to see what happens. If it's a farther down the road pick, I'm thinking they're going to go for another small forward or power forward that, then they could kind of, we don't know how many guys are coming back from the forward position. Denzel Valentine, Thaddeus Young, those guys are question marks. I think Al-Farouq Amino is going to come back. I don't know if he's going to play, though. He didn't play when we acquired him in the Vucevic trade. But there's some question marks at depth when it comes to the front court. So if they stock up and go after Lonzo Ball, or they find another point guard to pick up in free agency somehow, I think you got to look to spice up your depth a little bit at small forward or power forward, even center. I mean, Daniel Tice is a good option. That's if he comes back. Thaddeus Young, if they re-sign him again, I'm cool with that. I'll be happy. He was serviceable. I'd like to get a little bit younger. Lauri Markkanen still technically could be back. I think the Bulls move on from him. So if they want to go for another front court guy, especially to challenge Patrick Williams a little bit, who showed glimpses of hope, but I mean, that kid still has, a long way to go. So ultimately, I think you just need to look for a guy that's serviceable. Again, later in the draft, I don't know if you're going to get a power forward or a small forward that's going to play right away. Maybe that's where Patrick Williams still has the advantage, but I'm trying to think of a guy. I don't know if I want Franz either, but
Wasn't that
I wouldn't
impressive?
be, I wouldn't be against the guy from where is he? Florida State. Okay, Scotty Barnes is a guy that might be worth picking up because he's got depth and versatility at multiple positions. Because, like I say, there's a couple of depth questions at different positions here in the front court. So I'll have a better answer once I see specifically where the Bulls are down the road here. But like I said, I think it's point guard if they get in the top 4. If not, I think they'll go for like small forward or power forward so they can get depth.
No, definitely. It's definitely interesting. It's definitely will be interesting to see what happens with this draft lottery, though, and see if the Bulls. I actually had forgotten about that too. I had read that when the deal went through for Vucevic, with the protected top 4 pick there in the lottery, and how the Bulls could keep that first round pick. But yeah, thank you for reminding me there on that process. But yeah, it will be interesting to see how this draft process plays out. Back to normal now with the NBA draft. Last year it was held in mid-November because of the COVID pandemic. Now it'll be held back to the normal time in June. So bringing back some sense of normalcy again back into basketball, into sports, and again, very very excited to. There's a lot of good players, a lot of good prospects in this draft, and excited to see how everything unfolds here in the next couple months and leading up to the draft itself, and the preparation there for this draft. But speaking of collegiate athletes going into the pro level and making money and actually getting paid. The other aspect of this was this past week. I saw I know Cody as well put it in our group chat there. There was a bill that was passed in the United States, or not passed, excuse me, proposed. What am I saying here? Bill that was proposed by Bernie Sanders in the United States Senate, talking about allowing players to unionize, to form unions, and he called college athletes the employees. I have it right here. They called the college athletes, yes, employees of the university. Collegiate athletes are workers. They deserve a pay to union, right to their own name, image, and likeness. And so the bill that's being proposed is basically talking about how I would allow players, again, like I said, to unionize, and in turn basically negotiate a pay scale for themselves from the university. Um, Fun, actually, in this article that I have here from the Washington Post. Fun fact that they had there was in 2015, Will, your Northwestern Wildcats football team tried to do the same thing. They tried to unionize, and they tried to basically encourage Northwestern athletics teams to do the same, to unionize against the university and the athletics department and demand pay, but the labor relations union denied that for them. So I just wanted to get your thoughts. I know this kind of opens up another can of worms of, do athletes deserve to get paid, and there's a whole debate on that. But just wanted to get your overall thoughts on this bill that's been proposed in Congress.
Well, it's interesting because there's other little things that, again, the article highlights the tidbits. They give you tidbits. They don't go in depth with everything, but like some of the other things that, seem to be fair, like this would also address athletes' medical expenses. It would extend scholarships in addition to increasing their earning power. Increasing scholarships, I actually have a different take on that. I'll explain here in a moment with the scholarships. But look, I think everybody, whether you're on the side of the fence of no, they shouldn't be paid or unionized, or yes, they deserve to be paid, they deserve to have a union, or they need to be considered employees. Look, something needs to change. I think we can all agree on that. That players don't have anybody looking out for them. These collegiate athletes, the NCAA doesn't look out for them. The schools don't look out for them. They're using them for money. They're taking advantage of them, making their football teams, their basketball teams, their baseball teams, whatever team it is. They're making money because they're building up the school's reputations for being a basketball school or being a football school. The players aren't allowed to have agents. If they sign an agent, oh, well, they just lost their eligibility. That means they have to go to the draft now, or they declare for the draft. They have to get an agent then, or however they want to do it. I mean, either way, they make one of those moves, they're done. There's no more protection or no more guarantee that they could keep their scholarship or go back into school without that. It's just it's kind of a mess, and I'll even take it on to the point to change things in order to help benefit others that aren't athletes at colleges. If a union is the way college athletes can get representation because they're not getting it from the schools, they're not getting it from the NCAA, I'm okay with it. Somebody needs to look out for them. Okay, you know, I'm part of a union, and that union potentially saved my job during the pandemic. Okay, they made an agreement to where nobody had to get laid off or fired, and you know that was huge. Okay, they were looking out for me when I was 2 months on the job before the pandemic, and crap hit the fan, as people like to say that phrase. I didn't have any saying power. No, do you think the top people in the company knew me? Probably not. So I have a little bit of a personal uh, connection to unions, and feel kind of good about them because they protect the little man. Somebody needs to protect the little man here, which is the athletes. And that's something like medical expenses. If somebody tears their ACL or somebody breaks their leg, who's paying for the medical bills? Who's helping these athletes get into, therapy or physical therapy or the surgeries, whatever it is they need? We have to realize that a lot of these players, they come from, part of the reason why they're playing sports, part of the reason why they're getting these scholarships is because otherwise they couldn't afford to go to these schools. They come from poverty, they come from families that don't have a lot of money, or they come from issues that, aren't necessarily their fault. So, you have to look out for them for a bit. And look, you mean to tell me there's no way for them to make any kind of money or get recognized? And the reason why I'm for this again too is if you allow the top players, the famous players, not every player is going to build a big reputation and get a lot of money for the school. Okay, not everybody's a Zion Williamson, not everybody's a Michael Jordan, not everybody is name whatever big player in any sport. Not everybody's a Justin Fields. So those guys that don't have, or Trevor Lawrence, who's signed on with Gatorade even before getting drafted, technically, not everybody is a big name player that has their own brand. So what if regular scholarships go to those players that aren't Trevor Lawrence or aren't Zion Williamson, but the guys that are Zion Williamson and Trevor Lawrence, maybe they don't need to keep hanging on to a scholarship because they can make enough money to afford going to school. And obviously no one, they're not going to lose their spot on the football team or the basketball team because they're generational talents, whether they stay for 1 year, 2 years, or all 4 years, or however long they could stay based off of eligibility. And what if we start looking back at how can we help, because this was me help the other college students that aren't athletes and get more people to help them be able to afford colleges and help them afford tuition and room and board. I made, and this is the toot my own horn because everybody could care less, but just a good example here. I made the Dean's List every single semester at Ball State. Every single year I was celebrated at the Dean's List ceremony at CCIM, the department for Ball State and for TCOM and whatnot. And, all I got was a piece of paper, and it said, oh, congratulations, you made the Dean's List. Okay, academic honors, but I always said, why can't I get like $1,000 off tuition or something? Like, give me something more than a piece of paper that would actually help me, that would motivate me and other students to keep doing well in the classes and school, because in turn, graduation rates, passing classes, there's all those statistics that help. We help colleges too in different areas in the academic field. So could maybe allowing athletes to earn their own money and support themselves more often than not, maybe that helps people like you, Yash, or me, or Cody, where, when we're in Cardinal Sports Live and we're using TV equipment and computers that were probably 10 plus years old, maybe more money could go to us so we could get a better radio station or a TV station at Ball State and better cameras and equipment to use for the stuff we're doing, even though we're not athletes. So we can interview the athletes and cover them and whatnot. And there's a whole lot of politics you guys know I could get into at Ball State. Not going to go there because not everybody's going to understand it. But the point I'm trying to make is athletes need somebody to stand up for them and have some kind of rights here against the big head honchos here, which is the NCAA and which is schools themselves. And also, I just think it benefits even people like me that I wasn't an athlete, I wasn't a 5-star recruit, but I was able to be a part of some great groups, including with you guys at Ball State University, whether it was in classes or whether it was in extracurricular stuff and organizations related to my major. And maybe we could get some more money back and more ways to uh, reward students that, like me, that got good grades, that passed classes, that got academic honors, that got on the dean's list. And I just think it's more than just athletes and sports. That's what I'm trying to say here. But of course, I think that these athletes there's got to be some kind of labor rights and got to be some kind of money rights for them to be able to get some kind of money here. And in return, it might save the schools money themselves too. And we don't have to have 80 scholarships for football, and we don't have to have 20 scholarships. And then they have to pick and choose who gets a scholarship on some of these, baseball teams or lesser sports that aren't, and I say lesser, meaning they're not as big or as popular as say basketball and football. There's less scholarships for the lower sports on the totem pole. So I just think this bill protects athletes and could actually help solve or look out for people in other areas, whether it's regular students in other areas and other fields. And I think it becomes more fair for everybody. So I like the idea of this. There's nothing wrong with a union when it could help protect the little man and gives you some kind of power to at least to go toe to toe with the NCAA in legislative terms and just different things like that. So we need to see more of what this bill is, I think. But I think this article you referenced, Yash, from the Washington Post, anybody that wants to read this, I'm not doing it justice because I know I'm all over the place with my personal opinions and stuff, but this gives you a good idea of what the tidbits are in this. But this is something I think we should continue to watch closely, because this is the fact that there's government officials helping these college athletes now, and it's not just the athletes themselves, like at Northwestern, 6 years ago, is a promising sign that there might be changes. And again, I just think this could help fix a couple of other issues regarding sports and regarding all other facets of universities and colleges.
Well, first of all, Will, that's well said. Everything. I'll try and follow up with what you said, but I'll stick it to sports just for the sake of this argument. And in this article by the Washington Post, the NCAA was quoted as saying, it didn't say who said it. Actually, hang on, if I could. Thursday. Oh, that's Bernie Sanders. Never mind. I was a paragraph up. Yeah, so the NCAA put out a statement condemning the bill on Thursday, saying, quote, college athletes are students and not employees of their college or university. This bill would directly undercut the purpose of college, earning a degree. Hold up a second. So if the purpose of college is earning a degree, guys, what percentage of, whether that be basketball, whether that be of the total basketball players, the total football players, how many of them how many of them do we see leave college early to go pursue a professional career? It's a ton. I mean, we see a ton and of athletes leave college early to pursue a professional sports career. So the NCAA is, I mean, look, I get it. The goal is to earn a degree. I mean, we all earned our degrees from Ball State. Yash, you're about to be in doctorate school, which Jesus, I'm gonna have to call you Dr. Yash from here in probably a few years. That's gonna be weird, but that's another topic for another day. But it just you're not making much sense, NCAA. Your goal is apparently to help these kids earn a degree, but yet you provide a system in which, oh yeah, you can leave after your freshman year, or heck, when we see it in the NBA now, guys are skipping college and going straight to, say, the G League or whatever. So it's a little, they're kind of contradicting themselves, but I'll say this. I'm in favor of this. I've been in favor of athletes' name, image, and likeness since it became a topic, really. The amount of money that football programs I'm just going to take Alabama because they're the premier program in college football. The amount of money that program makes for the university with TV deals, sponsorships, game tickets. I could go on and on and on. And I mean, everyone knows this, but I'll say it anyway. You know how much the players get? The guys who actually go on the field and actually do the work, they don't get a damn penny. And I think that's absolute asinine. That the players who actually go out there and do the work, the laborers, the people who actually perform the labor, don't get an ounce of anything. And I'll touch on the injury thing that you've referenced. These universities can rip that scholarship away from any single player on it could be any given second. You tear your ACL, sorry, we're going to take your scholarship and we're going to force you to actually pay your way back to a university, and we're just going to give it to another guy. Scholarships can be taken away at a second's notice. And the fact that athletes don't have any protection against that is a joke, because they, like you said, well, they deserve to be protected. I mean, they are doing the exact same thing, and this is another argument I've used. They're doing the exact same thing that the professionals are doing. I mean, on a little lesser degree. Some even would say on a bigger degree. I mean, because I know people like March Madness. The skill level is just a little lower, but they're basically doing the same things. So overall, I'll say yes. I'm in full support of this, whether that be a union, athletes getting paid. I've been in support of it for quite a while now. And it's about time that something changes. I think we're slowly getting there. I think we will get there eventually. And this is hopefully another step in the right direction. It does say that both the Senate and the House are pretty far apart in this article on actually putting this out and signing off on it and putting it into effect. So that's a little discouraging to see, but that's nothing new. Knowing our politics in our country, I'm not going to get into politics because I could be here all night on that topic. But yeah, bottom line is we need to start thinking about actually, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to actually act on it. And we've been talking and talking and talking about it for so damn long now. Let's actually act on it. and let's give these college athletes and just college players in general the respect they deserve, the appreciation they deserve, and overall the protection that they deserve. Because we hear it in professional sports, health and safety of our players is the utmost priority. I haven't heard anyone in college say that, which little ironic, just that they really don't care about the health and safety of their players. So I think it needs to happen. Hopefully it does.
Yeah, you touched on the how scholarships can be lost in a second's notice there.
Yep. And
I had a
yep. You get
friend-
hurt and
yeah.
bye-bye your scholarship.
Yeah, and I had a friend, just on a personal note there, I had a friend who used to play at who I work with, and now he used to play at. He told me he used to play at Drake University in Iowa. Then he tore his rotator cuff, and then wasn't the same, and then they cut him, and now he transferred to the University of Tennessee, and he's trying to walk on onto their football team, but he basically lost a scholarship in that same fashion, is that he hurt his rotator cuff, and they're bye your scholarship. So no, I definitely agree with the way, with the image, the likeness, profiting off of that for college athletes there, and to have the chance to unionize and fight for wages. Really, that's, like you said, the House and Senate in this article, they're kind of far off on this, and they said it's there. It's unlikely that it will pass through, but it's another step. Like Will said, with how the way the 2015 Northwestern Wildcats were attempting to change the way college athletics and these athletes get compensated. This is another step in the right direction, even though it is kind of disheartening to hear that news. It is another, like I said, another step in the right direction there for collegiate athletics. And yeah, they do deserve to get paid. Another kind of example that I would point to is I read, I think last year, a year and a half ago, University of Florida kicker or punter for University of Florida. He was making YouTube videos, or he was making like trick shot YouTube videos, and the NCAA said, "Oh, you can't profit off of that." And that to me is like, dude, this dude's making. I mean, they were pretty amazing YouTube videos this guy's making. He was getting 100,000, 200,000, whatever views that YouTube needs for you to make monetary gains. But then the NCAA withheld the money that he was getting from YouTube, and that's kind of like the other aspect of this is, you have people saying, well, the people that get academic scholarships, or they can still go out and make money off of whatever they want to make off, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, whatever it is. Why can't athletes do the same? So that's kind of that question stuck out to me, is like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you see some of these guys, some of the people that get these academic scholarships that are on, they have vlogs on YouTube, or they have a podcast. Some of these academic podcasts I've listened to, like they're getting some big views and making monetary, getting compensated monetarily, excuse me, for what they're doing on these apps. And yet college athletes who, like Cody said, they're the ones on the field doing the work, are getting nothing for it. So again,
they're college kids at the end of the day.
Yeah. So,
and the fact that their peers, that's a great point, Josh.
Yeah.
I mean, their peers on campus they could literally be doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Like one.
Well, what's interesting too is like,
and make zero. One would make zero, and the other one would make money.
Yeah, I know. Trey had mentioned this to me too. Trey Moses, our friend from Ball State here, pleased to play on the Ball State men's basketball team. He said, if he didn't have money for lunch and I was to buy him lunch, it would be an NCAA violation and have to go through all this. Like, he can't take money from me, or take money, or be compensated in some way monetarily by somebody or something, because it would be considered a gift. from the NCAA, which is not allowed. And that's a whole nother topic we could get into, and how strict and crazy the NCAA is. But again, another strong step for the kind of representation of college athletes, and kind of helping them to get compensated in a fair way as compared to their peers. But with that being said, before we move on, we do want to let you know you're listening to Beyond the Press Box with Yash Padee, Cody Emerson, Will Hatzel, and Zach Kyleman. Be sure to follow and interact with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. To listen to more great episodes, subscribe to our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. You can just search Beyond the Press Box on YouTube. You can also listen to us on the Unhinged Sports Network. Just head over to unhingedsn.com to listen to us and check out other great podcasts featured on the network as well. Before we return to the show, we do want to let you know that through our partnership with the Unhinged Sports Network, we've partnered with Fubo TV. What is Fubo TV, you may ask? Fubo TV brings you 100 plus channels, including ESPN, CBS, Fox, NBC, and many more without the hassle of a cable contract. Don't believe me? Click the link in our social media bios and start your 7-day free trial today. There's some big news, Cody. I know we talked about the NBA, we talked about college athletes, getting paid in their likeness, but I want to touch on some MLB news now. And while the collegiate athlete bill was big news over this past week, some other big news has come out of the Atlanta Braves organization. And Marcell Ozuna, he was arrested on 2 counts of domestic violence and battery, I believe. And now the MLB is starting an investigation into the matter. So just wanted to get your overall thoughts on the situation in the Atlanta Braves organization, and how the absence of Ozuna, who I know you said off the air potentially has played the last game in a Braves uniform, how that will impact the Braves moving forward this season.
Yeah, it's how Will is usually the one who finds a topic to get upset about. It's my turn this week. My overall take is the Braves can't catch a damn break. I mean, we had Mike Soroka, who may play, may not play. Braves fans have no idea what the hell's going on with that. So that's been something we've been dealing with. Then Huascar Ynoa, our young star pitcher, after a bad outing, punches the seating in the dugout and breaks his hand and is out a few months. And now this. I'm not going to get into exactly what happened, because if you want to know, you can read about it. It's pretty disturbing, to be quite honest. So my gut feeling is he's played his last game for the Atlanta Braves. MLB, like you said, Josh, is going to open up their own investigation. And from what I've read, there has not been. I don't see how he comes out of this without a major suspension, without I don't know how long they'd suspend him for.
Yeah, I think it's up to 20 years in prison too if he's convicted.
There's a whole baseball is the last thing on should be the last thing on Marcell Ozuna's mind right now, because he's an idiot. I could go on and on about the insults that I could throw his way. I don't know why he decided to do this. He was going to miss, I think, 5-6 weeks anyway, because he dislocated 2 fingers sliding into third. So he was already hurt. And then he goes out and does this. I just don't get it. It's frustrating. And now how it's going to be impacted on the field, Um, well, is I think we'll give more time to Ender Inciarte, who more than capable of he was a starter, has been a starter for us. So I don't think that we have I think the depth will be fine, but in terms of his bat, yeah, we're really gonna miss it. Freddie Freeman, Ronald Acuna, they're gonna have to continue to play as great as they have. So, because Ozuna's a big power bat, and what sucks is the Braves just this past offseason signed him to a 4-year, $64 million contract. I believe those are the numbers. So now the question becomes, is this reason to be able to avoid the contract? I mean, that's one of the main positives that I could come out of this, is the Braves may not have to pay him. If this turns out to be true and he gets indicted on, whatever charges he gets accused of, so it sucks. I mean, bluntly, it does. He's an idiot. Braves can't catch a damn break. They're still, and to add insult to injury, on the night that story breaks, the Braves get I'm gonna say it, they get their asses kicked 13-1 against the Mets, who are still in first place, as the Braves still they can get to 500, but then they can't get above. So it's been a rough year to be a Braves fan so far. I mean, with so many different stuff and storylines happening in such a negative way, there hasn't been many positives. I mean, Ronald Acuna, Freddie Freeman, those are about the only two positives. That Ronald's playing like an MVP candidate. And then Freddie Freeman's continuing to do what Freddie Freeman does. But this was this was not a story I expected. I never thought Marcell was this type of guy, but I never really dove deep into his personal life because there was no need to. And it's sad when a story comes out like this, because he's a hell of a baseball player. And to kind of see this, basically, like I said, I don't think he plays another game for the Braves. He could very well not play another game in his Major League Baseball career. His career could be over because of this. Now look, I get, we've had some guys there who have done some not so bad, not so good things and have had a chance at redemption. I'm in the league, but the MLB, from what I remember, is a hell of a lot more strict than, well, I'm not going to say a hell of a lot more strict than the NFL, but, well, actually I will, because the NFL just doesn't give a damn about anything. So MLB, you rarely see guys come back from this. So it's going to suck, to put it bluntly. I mean, I don't know how they're going to replace his bat in the lineup. Maybe this opens up some more things come the trade deadline. Like one of my friends brought up, maybe, like I just mentioned, we can maybe shed his salary and not have to pay it. But yeah, it to put it bluntly, it sucks.
Yeah, it is an unfortunate situation there. And like you said, the Ronald Acuna, who leading the MLB in home runs, and Freddie Freeman have kind of been the two positives there for the Atlanta Braves. But on the flip side of that, Will, your Chicago Cubs, they have won 5 of their last 6 series. They basically split the 2-game series with the Cardinals, but they've won 5 of their last 6. Their recent one coming against the Cincinnati Reds here, and now they will face the Padres and Tatis Jr. on Tuesday night. So just wanted to get your overall thoughts on kind of, how by the way, the Cubs as well, they're stand second in the NL Central as well. So wanted to get your overall thoughts on the recent play that Chicago's had, and kind of what the Cubs have to do to keep it going against the Padres in this next series.
Well, let me tell you, I'm not too excited about playing the Padres. I mean, Mr. Fernando Tatis just continues to take the sport by storm. And the Cubs pitching staff, the starting pitchers have been they're hit or miss this year. I know they've been playing pretty well lately, and the bullpen they just broke a streak a day or two ago. I think they went like almost 30 straight innings or so pitched without allowing a run. That got snapped recently. That's impressive because usually it's been the bullpen that's been shaky. Now we just don't have a lot of reliable guys to put on the mound to start a game and expect to go 6 or 7 innings. And actually tomorrow things just got even more interesting because tomorrow's starter Trevor Williams had emergency appendectomy or whatever, however you say, like, yeah, they get his appendix taken out tonight. So he's not playing anytime soon. So I think that probably means Kyle Hendricks gets pushed up a day. We'll have to see what happens. So now we don't even know how the probable pitchers lineup is going to go for the next 3 games in this series against the Padres. But even if Trevor Williams doesn't have emergency surgery, I'm not too sure how I feel because Kyle Hendricks has been solid. He's been probably the best pitcher of late. Trevor Williams has his moments, but again, when you have to stop Fernando Tatis in that lineup, that's got a lot of playmakers and a lot of good hitters. It's a little bit concerning, and the Padres pitching staff doesn't necessarily knock your socks off to begin with. I mean, I think we look more at their offense, but look, I'm not here to talk about the Padres. The point is, the Cubs had a very impressive May. I mean, the fact that they've won the only series they lost in the month of May was their 2-game series in the middle of the month against Cleveland, like 2.5 weeks ago. I know beating the Pirates, sweeping them is not that impressive. The Reds are kind of up and down. The Cardinals series two weekends ago now was the most impressive out of everything they played, or even sweeping the Dodgers at the beginning of May. So what you saw was everything was clicking. The bullpen was solid. The starting pitching was good enough. It's not elite or great, but it was good enough. And the offense, there's an offense there. You have consistency from guys like Baez and Bryant. Wilson Contreras is making some noise. David Bodie was up there with RBIs too. The injury bug is kind of killing the Cubs right now. They lost David Bodie yesterday to a separated shoulder. He's probably going to be out a while. Anthony Rizzo missed his 5th straight game earlier today in the series finale against the Reds with his usual back tightness and back issues. So that's a little bit concerning, but again, they're being led by Baez, Bryant. There's a couple of other guys that have been brought up, from the minors, like Patrick Wisdom has already come out here. He's already got a home run, an RBI, and just a few appearances so far. Again, I think Adbert Alzolay, the young gun in the rotation, that's been starting to pitch more and more. He's gaining confidence. He's starting to pitch better. He's 3-4 on the season. I'm glad he's able to finally start soaking up innings. Like I said, ideally your starters have to go 5 or 6 innings to keep your bullpen from going absolutely nuts. So I think it's going to be a tough series, but if there's any time of the year to play the Padres, I guess it's to play them now because the Cubs are kind of hot right now. This is the first time in a long time I've seen them play consistent baseball when it comes to all facets of the game, not only winning games and showing up game after game. They're winning series. They swept the Pirates last week. We haven't. That's one thing the Cubs weren't doing at the beginning of the season, and they've struggled with over the last couple of years. Is just winning series. Like, okay, great, they could beat Milwaukee in the first game, they could beat the Reds in the first game, but then they lose the next 2 out of 3, or they lose the next 2, and it's just disappointing to see that they start off so good in these series and then they don't win. So I'm going to say the Padres win that series, but you know what? Like I said, if there's any chance of, at least winning 2 out of 3 games and winning the series against the Padres, now might be the time. Just, you know what? Try to keep Fernando Tatis from hitting like 8 home runs the next 3 days.
Yeah, and it's like you said, it's been crazy for the Cubs. Their only loss coming to the 2 weeks ago. I know you mentioned, and so in the series. So really fun time and phenomenal time for the Chicago Cubs fans. And I know you're our uh, crosstown rivalry guy as well, Will. So I want to kind of flip the script before we touch on the trade deadline here and kind of what to look for in the trade deadline. Talk about the Chicago White Sox, who were coming off a series sweep of the Baltimore Orioles. They'll face the Indians, the Cleveland Indians, in their next series. And by the way, I know Cody put this out on our group chat earlier this week. Their new uniforms, the Southside uniforms, are phenomenal.
Very nice.
So
Yes, they are. Yeah.
yeah,
I love them actually. Just
yeah.
don't wear them when it's like 95 degrees outside because those guys are going to be burning up. All black, but they're nice.
Yeah, yeah. No, those unis are nice, but kind of touch on the White Sox sweep of the Orioles and kind of looking ahead to the Indian series.
Well, look, the resiliency of the White Sox has been phenomenal with the multiple injuries that they've had to go through. You got the Tony La Russa saga that we talked about last week. If anybody missed out on last week's episode, you need to go check it out. At least the second half of the show at the 1 hour mark where we talk about the Sox and the Yerman Mercedes and La Russa saga. But that's the impressive thing about this team is no matter what negativity and drama they have to face, they just set it aside and they move on. They keep playing. And again, everything's working well. They're pitching from the starters that are able to eat up innings. I mean, every starter outside of, as I'm trying to look at this now, outside of Rodon has gone over 50 innings so far, or if you're Lucas Giolito, 62. So the bullpen, doesn't even have to go out there and pitch 5 innings a game. You have Liam Hendriks, who has really hit his groove and yesterday they had a doubleheader. He got 2 saves in both of those games. It got me a lot of fantasy points. I was happy about that, but I digress. But look, everybody that they've acquired has stepped up, and Yerman Mercedes, the continued surprise and insurgence of him, still hitting 320, it's leading the team in the batting average. You look at what's his name, Billy Hamilton, hit 2 home runs in the last 2 games. I mean, it's even the little guys, the guys you didn't expect to really make any plays. They're stepping up. Again, without Luis Robert, without Eloy Jimenez, you have, Zach Collins, a young guy stepping up. You have Andrew Vaughn, a young guy stepping up. Billy Hamilton, an old veteran guy who's not really known for power in his bat, showing up, also making great defensive plays in the outfield. You have Nick Madrigal, a young guy who's one of the best 0-2 hitters in baseball. It's statistically like of all time. And this is a guy that's been in the league for a little over a year now. So you have a combination of your veteran players like Abreu that have been there, done that are still doing it. Everybody's doing their part. And believe it or not, La Russa, when he's not being dumb with not knowing the actual rules or being pissed about the unwritten rules that we supposedly have to follow, he manages a game pretty well for the most part, at least now compared to the beginning of the season. I think he's handled his in-game management better than at the beginning of the season in terms of his pitchers, who he's throwing out there when it comes to the 10th inning, things like that. And I think he's using Liam Hendriks appropriately. He's not overusing him. He's putting him out there in great situations. And again, 2 good games against the Orioles yesterday in a doubleheader because it rained out on Friday. To throw him out there twice, it seems like a lot and seems like it's crazy, but he got it done. They didn't have to cycle through a lot of pitchers. And today he got, was able to get, actually, I think he did pitch again today. I got to check that, but the guy's been a monster. He's been fantastic. And again, solid signing by the management. Yeah. In the last 2 games, Liam Hendricks has made 3 appearances. So, and actually he got a save today too. So let me correct myself here. So this guy has been busy. He deserves a day off tomorrow. But let me put it to you this way, guys. The White Sox, they keep on rolling. And as long as the injury bug just doesn't keep decimating this team, I think they're going to be fine. But they are another team that I would say watch for. I don't think they're going to be afraid to get aggressive at the trade deadline, because whether Robert and Jimenez come back near the end of the season or not, they need probably to bolster their depth and have a couple more guys there just in case, specifically outfield depth. And it doesn't hurt to have another power bat. They already have a lot of contact hitters, but I need somebody to join the ranks of Abreu in terms of getting that ball into the bleachers. So, but yeah, the White Sox have been a lot of fun to watch. Still one of the best teams in baseball. Can't wait to see them start repping those new threads too.
And like you mentioned, that La Russa saga, if you haven't caught that episode, make sure to listen to that as well, last week's episode as well. But yeah, it seems like even with all the drama going on there, the White Sox, like you said, keep on rolling. Chicago sports doing really, really well at this time of year, with the Cubs winning 5 of 6 their series in the month of May. That the White Sox are rolling. I've heard and I've watched videos. Only Justin Fields is doing phenomenal work on the field during OTAs so far with the Chicago Bears. So, and the Bulls are they have a chance at keeping that first round pick if they're able to get in the lottery. So a lot of good things happening around Chicago sports at the present moment, Will. So it's nice to see the Cubs and the White Sox and the way
I just need Justin Fields in the fall, and 2021 Chicago sports is complete.
Yeah.
But pass some of that good luck over to the Braves.
That's kind of what I was wanting to.
It might be selling. Who knows?
Touch on there, because I know, Cody, you had mentioned the with the absence of Ozuna now, how the Braves could potentially look at the trade deadline to get somebody, or just look at the trade deadline itself. And so just wanted to get I know Bleacher Report, they put out kind of some big names. They're predicting who's going to be a part of this trade deadline, who will be on the block come that July 31st trade deadline. And so just wanted to get your thoughts on the deadline itself. Who do you see as your team? Same way with what I did with the NBA segment there. Who do you see as your team picking up as the trade deadline approaches?
Well, a good one would be, there's a reason half these guys are on here, and that's because they're free agents at the end of the year. So that's the risk you run if you do try and trade for a majority of these guys. But I would, for the Braves, any chance you can get to get some outfield help, outfield depth. Christian Pache hasn't been what we thought. I was really high on him coming in. I really thought that he could kind of stem the tide a little bit, but he's back in, Double-A, working his way back from injury, and he'll probably stay at Triple-A to kind of just revamp his offense a little bit. But outfielders, Starling Marte is one on here. He does have fractured ribs, so he's an injured player right now. But batting .316 with a .420 on base, and slugging .420, and on base of .491 is pretty darn nice. So you can't dispute the numbers there. Um, I continue to say it, and it'll be another guy that I'm really hoping the Braves can somebody in the bullpen. And the name that is continually brought up um, is Craig Kimbrell. I would love and welcome with open arms a reunion with Craig Kimbrell. I mean, the Braves have been not really decimated with injury in the bullpen, but they just can't seem to find the right combination late in games. I can't tell you how many blown leads the bullpen has. I know there's probably a stat for it. I'm out there and I'd have to look it up to tell you guys, but it seems like every second or third game, the Braves are either tied with their team that they're facing in the seventh, eighth inning, and then the bullpen absolutely blows it. Does Craig Kimbrell be the closer type guy with the Braves? We're slowly reworking Shane Green back, who we signed. So, and I think probably the goal is to probably get him back into that closer role once he works his way up to the major league level. But Kimbrell would just solidify a spot. I mean, I don't really have confidence in basically anybody in the bullpen right now. I mean, Kimbrell this year has been he's just gave up 4 hits and two runs in his final 12 and 2/3 innings, striking out 26 guys. He's 32 years old, and he's just given up 5 hits and 1 run in 14 innings while striking out 21 guys. So he is Will, and I can let you talk about him a bit more. I would welcome him with open arms back to the Braves. And he's been dominant. He's been, after a few off years, he's been back to the Craig Kimbrell that I knew watching as a Braves fan. And when he would come in and the stadium would go dark, the ring of fire that would go around the stadium, it was such a cool entrance. And something I got to see in person a handful of times. It was pretty damn cool to see. But he's kind of gotten back to that. I don't know what's gotten into him, but if the Braves would somehow get him, I would not complain. So what I'm looking for is, I still think the Braves can be buyers at the deadline, because this team, I just don't know what it is. I think it'll hopefully get things figured out. But Freddie's still batting right around 236, which is not where he needs to be. He's starting to come along, but Austin Riley's played well. But you look at most of these guys, they're batting 230, 220. So to get another bat and some outfield depth and some relievers, someone to jolt the offense, someone to kind of help you close games, I think that's where the Braves need to go towards the deadline if they really are dead serious about working this thing out and becoming, the National League contender that everyone knows they can be.
Well, your thoughts on the MLB trade deadline? Who, I know Chris Bryant's a name that's on this list that's popped up. So, just your thoughts on who the Cubs and the White Sox should look into in the trade deadline.
I tell you what, Yash, it's going to be interesting because I don't envy Cubs management right now because, and I said this last week, the next month of the season, meaning probably all of June here, is going to probably determine or help determine the future of this team. This team is great when they play as well as they did in the month of May. But what the last 3 years have shown you, 3.5, if you want to count even part of the beginning of this year, this team has a hard time staying consistent. Okay. Chris Bryant having a good year, Javi Baez having a good year. Javi still could be a strikeout machine, but then damn it, you love him when he does the El Mago magic trick stuff like when he finessed the entire Pirates defense by running back to home plate, then run back to first and getting on second, causing all these errors and everything. I love that he plays like that. But the fact that you don't get it every game, these guys have disappeared in playoff games after the World Series in the couple of years that they've made it since. Who are you paying the big bucks to? And when you have upcoming free agent classes of guys that you can arguably sign and hopefully just they're better and can replace guys like Baez or Bryant or Rizzo, whoever it is that goes in the future here. It's just a lot to think about. They have to pick and choose who they're going to have. Even Craig Kimbrell, yeah, he's having a great year and could help them make a playoff run or a playoff push. But are you re-signing him again to another contract? Are you keeping him? Or are you gonna, he's probably gonna attract a lot of expensive bidders in the winter meetings when free agency starts again. Are you gonna pay top dollar for an aging closer, or are you gonna use that money to re-sign Javi Baez or Chris Bryant? It's going to be interesting. If I'll put it in simple terms. Maybe this is something when Zach is able to rejoin us again, we could have a conversation about this, a specific Cubs question or segment on who they should keep or who they should trade. I'll put it to you this way. One or two guys need to go. They should sell in order to acquire some prospects or maybe maybe a good starting pitcher. Like if you're trading Javi Baez, screw getting 8 prospects. I want a couple of prospects, but I want a starting pitcher. Even if he's a young guy in AAA right now, I want to. That's their biggest need right now is they don't have a good rotation. If they want to be back in the playoffs in the next year or two, or even this year, they need help with in the rotation. So bottom line is they're going to have to make a decision in the next 30 days or so, 30, 40 days. And I expect them to be active in the trade market. I don't expect them to buy much. I expect a little bit of selling. So Craig Kimbrell, I think there's a good chance he goes. I know it would suck to lose the closer if they're going to try to do a playoff run this year, but I just don't see the Cubs wanting to re-sign an aging guy like him. You could get into things could get fancy here, and maybe you trade Javi Baez and this is a dream. This is like a MLB The Show scenario. Trevor Story is supposedly up for grabs, maybe from Colorado. Maybe what you do here is you could trade Javi Baez for Trevor Story and other miscellaneous things. You don't necessarily need Chris Bryant at third base anymore because he's playing first. He's playing in the outfield. He plays all over the place now. He's got great versatility. Maybe you can make a big move and trade Javi Baez for Trevor Story, or you get rid of Chris Bryant and you bring in a solid starting pitcher or something. There's a lot of different ways they could do this. But I just, as a whole with free agency, look, people are saying Trevor Story. People are bringing up Max Scherzer. Some of these bigger names like Scherzer and Story, you're going to have to probably give up a lot. So I don't know if you're going to see huge blockbuster deals from other teams outside of maybe the Cubs. But, look, I look at Joey Gallo. He's struggling in a lot of different areas, but the guy's got power in his bat and he could be a valuable outfielder at times, serviceable outfielder. Plus, he's got one more year of arbitration eligibility in 2022 before hitting the open market in 2023. Not necessarily that now, if the White Sox want to pick him up, because again, they're sorely lacking depth and power from their outfield, maybe Joey Gallo, you pick him up. And if you can't afford him or he doesn't fit in your plans after this year, even if you manage to retain him again or can retain him again, then that becomes a trading chip for whatever else the White Sox need after this season. So I think the Cubs are selling potentially at least a little bit. I think the White Sox are buying. I don't know if it's going to be as aggressive as everybody says, but I could see one or two decent moves. Starling Marte is another guy that could be, on the way out. I don't envision him wanting to stay with the Marlins, even though they got a lot of young arms that serve as their futures. That are going to serve as their future foundation. But he's 32 years old. He is on the injury shelf with a fractured rib, so we'll have to see what happens there. But there's a lot of interesting names, but I think it just depends on how aggressive teams want to be, and I don't know if you're going to see many big blockbuster trades like everybody thinks. I would be shocked. I'll end with this. I will be shocked if the Cubs make a blockbuster deal that we see Baez go, we see Kimbrel go, we see Contreras go, we see, I don't think we're getting rid of 4 or 5 different guys. So we'll see what happens there. But Cubs are sellers and Sox are buyers, and
Buyers.
it's going to be interesting. That's all I'm going to say. Very
Yeah,
interesting.
it'll be a very, very, we're still 2 months out from this trade deadline, but it's been quite an intriguing intriguing MLB season so far. I think we've had a record number of no hitters so far. We're on pace to break that. I know. So it'll be very, very intriguing these next 2 months. Very, very intriguing trade deadline. And as we move forward into the MLB season and progress through this 2021 MLB season overall. But before we end the night, I know Will and Cody, you guys being from Indiana, makes it even more special to have had the Indianapolis 500 take place Sunday as of this recording. So just wanted to get your overall thoughts. Helio Castroneves, he won his 4th Indy 500 record, tying like three or four other guys who have done the same. So just wanted to get your overall thoughts on the Indy 500 and the win and the impact that it had these last weeks throughout the month of May in Indianapolis.
Oh, well, it's been, I mean, because we carry it at the radio station that I work at, where we air the 500 on our radio station. So I actually had the chance this week to talk with a handful of 2 drivers, Ed Jones and Renus VK, and also Motor Speedway president Doug Bowles. And it was just amazing to see. First of all, they had the 500 held, I think, right around 140,000 fans, which that's not even full capacity. It's the largest event that the world has, I'm pretty sure the world has seen since the pandemic. So just 140,000 people in one spot. I know it's probably a record for a sporting event since the pandemic. It could be the record for just an overall event as well. But so that was great to see. The fans were jam packed. I was able to watch the final few laps today. And look, I'm not a big diehard race fan, but you don't need to be to watch the Indy 500. It's one of those things to where it's called the greatest spectacle in racing for a reason. And it's something you just have to. I've been fortunate enough to go. And I tell you what, it's something that I'll remember for a while. Just the atmosphere as a whole, it was cool. And on top of it, today, Helio Castroneves winning his 4th. I mean, the guy's like, I want to say he's in his 50s. I'm pretty sure. And to win it and join an elite club of, just I think 3 other guys who have won it 4 times, it's a pretty big deal. So it was a great event today. Like we said, of this recording on Sunday. So great event to just, not just for the racing and for the sports, but just overall. I mean, it shows we're slowly getting back to life as normal, having 140,000 people at one event. It was a pretty big deal. So congrats to Helio. He made history today, and it's a pretty big deal. I mean, for the 500 to be back, it's like I said, the greatest spectacle in racing for a reason. And it was a joy to watch today for sure.
I'm actually not a
have you had the chance to go to the 500?
No. Have you guys ever been?
I've been once, and I've been dying to go back.
I have never had the chance.
I'm not a big racing person, but I tell you what, I would probably go to I'd actually go to the racetrack, any racetrack, and watch a race or an event. I'm not really big with watching it on TV, but look, I again, being an overall sports fan, and even the sports or the leagues I don't watch or pay attention to that much, there's enough of me that appreciates and understands and respect when big things happen. And of course, I think Cody, you hit it on the nail right on the head. Like this was a meaningful race, not just for the race, not just for Castronovas, but also the world and the sports world. They have over 100,000 fans in attendance, and of course, it
After
hitting
not
us
having any
so close
last
to
year.
home. Yes, yes, and it's just
So
being right close to home here for especially you. You're the closest to Indianapolis than well, you and Zach are compared to Yash and I, but I think this race, the storyline capped off the month of May perfectly with sports. We've seen a lot of great stuff happen in baseball and with basketball. And of course, those are the sports you always hear so much about. Racing, is kind of hit or miss depending on who you are, I guess, or where you're located. But when it comes to the Indianapolis 500, you're going to hear about it. The storyline impressed, and it was amazing. And I feel like even people like me that maybe aren't the biggest racing fans, uh, at least kind of gather around to this event and watch what happened, and just respect and appreciate everything that unfolded today. And I am again not a big racing fan, could almost care less, but for the sake of let's get the world back to normal and just respecting uh everybody involved and everything that happened today, it being a great storyline, being historic, I'm all for that stuff. And yeah, like I said, just what a way to cap off a great month of sports, which this was probably the best month of sports that we've seen in probably a year or so, because yeah, we didn't have fans fighting in the stands, we didn't have people throwing stuff at players, not that I approve of that, but I mean, all the stuff that we missed last year, we got it back, and along with great matchups, whether it's playoffs and the NBA, great baseball games and storylines and debates, and then of course, another awesome race. Anything that happens at the Indy 500, it always seems to never disappoint every year. At least I'll give the Indy 500 that. That's for sure one of the best races to look forward to every year.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll Will, you and I can we'll get our chance to head to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway one day and catch the Indy 500 in person
Beyond the press box
one day. But
reunion.
yeah,
Next year we're all
yeah,
going.
it's
we may
definitely.
give out tickets
I'm
next year at the radio station. I think
I'm
we normally
Let me
do.
know. I'll call. Be like, hi, can
yeah.
I talk to Cody, please?
I
I don't want
You'll
to
get
talk
the-
to any on-air hosts. I need to talk to Cody Emerson specifically.
You'll get the good old Fort Broadcasting. How may I help you?
Nice.
That's my customer service voice when I answer the phone at work.
Oh no, but no. Well, again, it's a like Cody said, the greatest spectacle in racing. And Will, you as well said it best. It's been especially from last year when we didn't have anything to now. You look at a year later, and you compare it to now. The month of May has been phenomenal in terms of events, in terms of getting a sense of normalcy back into sporting events here in the United States, especially now we're all getting vaccinated. That's also a big upside to that, of getting fans back into the stadium and getting the atmosphere getting the atmosphere the way it was before a sporting event atmosphere the way it was before the coronavirus pandemic hit last year. So fun to see. I know it's going to be a great, great months ahead with sporting, with baseball continuing now. You'll have the NBA playoffs continuing. Here you have training camp in the NFL. Can't wait till July, August hits, start of the the preseason in the NFL, and moving forward in the fall. So it's going to be I know it'll continue to get fans back, so it'll be nice to see fans, a plethora of fans, instead of just a handful of fans now, back in the stands, and back enjoying the game and the sport, the said sport itself. So, but with that being said, we want to thank you for listening to Beyond the Press Box. To stay up to date on content and to even join the debate, please like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search Beyond the Press Box and look for our cool red logo. To listen to more great episodes, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast, and Apple Podcast. Also, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have video versions of our podcast on our YouTube channel as well. We're also a proud member of the Unhinged Sports Network, so head on over to unhingedsn.com to listen to our podcast, along with many other great podcasts as well. But that's it for us tonight. We want to thank you for tuning in, and have a great rest of your week.